"This dirty boy shouldn't be here," Nurse Margaret Williams whispered to Dr. Harrison when she saw the barefoot boy in the courtyard of Manhattan Children's Hospital. "I'll call security." Dr. Michael Harrison, a pediatric surgeon respected 15 years ago, was about to agree when something extraordinary happened. His 7-year-old daughter Emma, paralyzed from her waist down 2 years after a terrible accident, laughed for the first time since the tragedy. The crystalline sound of Emma's laugh echoed through the courtyard like a miracle. The boy, who should not be more than 9 years old, made funny faces and imitated animals with exaggerated gestures, completely transforming the melancholy countenance that had become permanent on the girl's face. Michael felt his heart shoot. 2 years. 2 years of expensive therapies, renowned psychologists, experimental medications, and nothing had even managed to tear a smile from Emma. Now, a ragged boy on the street was able to impossible in minutes. "Dad, he's funny!" Emma clapped for the first time since the accident, her eyes shining with a vitality that Michael thought she lost forever. But as he approached the boy to thank, the boy stared at him with a disturbing maturity in his eyes. It was not fear that Michael saw there, it was deep distrust, like someone who had already been betrayed many times by well-dressed adults. "I just wanted to make her smile," said the boy, his voice loaded with wisdom that should not exist in someone so young. "She looked sad as I get sometimes." Michael noticed his bare and injured feet, his torn shirt, but especially the eyes. Eyes had too much seen for a child. "What are you called?" "Tommy." The boy hesitated. "I won't cause problems. I'm leaving." It was then that Margaret approached 2 security guards. "Dr. Harrison, this boy is not allowed to be here. It is a protocol from the hospital to remove anyone unauthorized from patients." What Michael did not realize was the slight tremor in Margaret's hands as he saw Tommy closer, nor the way she looked away quickly. There was something in that reaction that did not match a simple concern for protocols. Tommy retreated, but not before waving discreetly to Emma. "Bye, princess. Keep smiling." As the security guards escorted the boy out, Michael watched his daughter slowly return to the usual apathy. But there was a subtle difference, a spark of hope that did not exist before. Michael never imagined that at 42, after building a solid career and impeccable reputation, a street boy would be able to do what all modern medicine could not: return joy to his daughter. The irony was bitter and revealing. That night, Emma asked her first spontaneous question in 2 years. "Father, will the funny boy come back tomorrow?" Michael couldn't answer, but one thing was clear. That meeting had changed something fundamental. What he didn't imagine was that Margaret Williams was already making urgent connections, his trembling voice revealing a panic that went far beyond the simple break of hospital protocol. "I need to talk to Mr. Davidson immediately," she whispered on the phone, nervously looking at the corridors. "That boy?" He appeared. After all these months, he finally appeared. While Michael tried to soothe the miracle he had witnessed, Margaret was quickly walking down the hallway, his steps echoing an urgent pace that suggested that Tommy's presence in the hospital had triggered something much larger and more dangerous than any protocol violation. The next morning, Michael arrived early at the hospital, secretly waiting to find the boy again. Emma had spent the whole night talking about her new friend, showing more animation than in months. But when he reached the courtyard, he found only security guards patrolling the area with a military intensity. "Dr. Harrison," called Margaret, approaching with a forced smile, "we need to talk about yesterday's incident. There are security and responsibility issues that need to be addressed." Michael noticed something strange in Margaret's posture. In 15 years of work together, he had never seen her so nervous. His hands shake slightly as he held a thick paste, and his eyes turned constantly to the windows, as if expecting someone to appear at any time. "What kind of questions?" Michael asked, his medical intuition capturing signs that something much bigger was happening there. If this story of hope and transformation is touching your heart, be sure to subscribe to the channel to find out how a simple act of kindness of an abandoned child would become the catalyst of an epic battle against a cruel system that kept secrets Shadow 2 rivers to reveal. "Security questions?" Michael repeated, feeling the tension grow in the air. "Margaret, this boy just played with my daughter in the courtyard." Margaret opened the folder with slightly trembling hands, revealing official documents and photographs. "Dr. Harrison, this is not any boy. Tommy Richardson has been on the list of wanted for Children's Services Department for 6 months. Michael frowned, taking one of the photographs. It was definitely Tommy, but in a very different situation. Clean, well-dressed, smiling next to an elegant woman in front of a luxurious house. "I don't understand. He told me he lived on the street." "Exactly the problem," Margaret continued, his voice gaining an official tone that Michael had never heard before. "Tommy fled a very respected adopted family, The Richardsons have invested considerable time and resources in it, and now, well, let's say there are complicated legal issues involved. What Margaret did not mention was the connection he had made the night before to Richard Davidson, executive director of Davidson and Associates, one of the city's most powerful corporate law firms, the same firm that represented the interests of the hospital and several influential families of Manhattan. Margaret, are you telling me that a 9-year-old child is a dangerous fugitive? Michael questioned incredulously. I'm saying that your presence here can generate serious legal problems for the hospital, she replied, closing the paste. Richardsons are very influential people. They contribute generously to various institutions, including this. Michael started connecting the points. The Richardson, I had heard that name before. James Richardson was a member of the Hospital Administrative Council, owner of a luxury hotel chain and known for his political connections. His wife, Patricia, was active in various charity organizations in high society. And they want the boy back? Michael asked, already suspecting the answer. Far away, Margaret confirmed. Apparently Tommy has behavior problems, compulsive lies, minor theft, disruptive behavior. The foster family made a significant emotional and financial investment in its rehabilitation. But Michael remembered Tommy's eyes. There was no malice there, just a deep sadness that he recognized as a doctor. He had seen many cases of child trauma, and Tommy did not display the typical behaviors of a genuinely problematic child. Margaret, do I need to ask a direct question? You already knew this boy before yesterday? Margaret's silence lasted a few seconds more than he should. Dr. Harrison, my only concern is the well-being of patients in this hospital and avoid unnecessary legal complications. It was a non-response, and they both knew that. That afternoon, Michael decided to do his own investigation. Using his contacts at the hospital, he was able to access records of visitors from recent months. What he found out made him disturbed. Tommy had appeared at the hospital at least 5 times in the last 2 months, always being escorted out of security, always with Margaret Williams present. Even stranger, on all occasions, the boy had been found interacting with patients, and in each case, medical reports showed inexplicable improvements in mood and cooperation with treatments from small patients after these interactions. Michael also discovered something Margaret had omitted. The Richardson were not just any adopted family. James Richardson was being discreetly investigated by the FBI for tax dropout and money laundering through their charity organizations. Patricia Richardson had been accused twice of child neglect by neighbors, but the processes always mysteriously disappeared. At night, Michael received a call that changed his perspective completely. Dr. Harrison, here is Sarah Chen, social worker at the Department of Children's Services. I need to talk to you about Tommy Richardson. Of course, Sarah. Margaret Williams showed me some documents today. There was a break. Dr. Harrison, we have no employee named Margaret Williams in our records, and most importantly, Tommy Richardson is not a fugitive. He is a victim. Michael's blood froze. Like this? Tommy was removed from Richardson's house 3 months ago after denunciations of physical and psychological abuse. He was in our protective custody until it has disappeared 6 weeks ago. We are looking for him desperately, but not as a fugitive. We are concerned about his safety. Michael felt the world turn. Sarah, I need to find you. I have information about Tommy. What Michael didn't know was that her telephone conversation was being monitored. In an elegant office at Upper East Side, Richard Davidson turned off a recorder and dialed daily for James Richardson. We have a problem, said Davidson without preambles. The doctor is asking questions, and worse, real social services have contacted him. Richardson's voice on the other end of the line was cold. So it's time to speed up our schedule. Margaret knows what to do. While Michael was preparing to find the true social worker the next morning, Tommy was hidden in a makeshift shelter under a bridge, a few kilometers from the hospital, dreaming of the girl in the wheelchair she had managed to smile. What he didn't know was that much more powerful and dangerous forces than he imagined were converging toward him. And Margaret Williams, who was neither hospital nurses nor, finished the preparations for what would be called the safe recovery of a troubled child, an euphemism that hid a much more dark truth about the fate awaiting Tommy Richardson. Michael met Sarah Chen at the coffee near the hospital 2 hours ahead of schedule. Her mind is seething with the revelations of the night before. The royal social worker was an Asian woman about 40-year-olds with tired eyes that revealed years of struggle for vulnerable children. Dr. Harrison, thanks for contacting, said Sarah, placing a thick paste on the table. Tommy Richardson, or rather Tommy Chen, this is his real name, he's my nephew. Michael felt the floor collapse. Your nephew? My younger brother and his wife died in a car accident 2 years ago. Tommy was placed in the adoption system and ended the Richardson. Sarah opened the folder, revealing disturbing photographs. These were taken when we removed them from their house 3 months ago. Michael studied the images: bruises on the back of Tommy, cigarette burns in the arms, scars that looked deliberate. Your stomach rolled. Richardson are powerful people, continued Sarah, his voice full of frustration. Every time we tried to investigate the complaints, the lawsuits disappeared. Judges transferred lost evidence, witnesses who changed version. And Margaret Williams? Sarah frowned. I have never heard that name in our records, but I can tell you something. Someone inside the system is helping the Richardson. Tommy has escaped our protective custody 6 weeks ago, and since then has been a race against time. Michael noticed the urgency in Sarah's voice. Run against time? The Richardson have filed a lawsuit to recover custody, claiming that Tommy is dangerous and needs specialized treatment in a private institution they finance. If they can, he will disappear from the system forever. As they talked, Michael noticed a man in a dark suit sitting 3 tables ago, pretending to read a newspaper, but clearly paying attention to his conversation. When his eyes met, the man quickly deflected the focus. Sarah, I think we're being observed, Michael murmured. Sarah looked discreetly and her expression hardened. We need to get out of here now. They came out of the back, but Michael realized that the man in suit followed them. Sarah took him through a series of alleys until they reached a small office in an old building. This is my true office, explained Sarah, locking multiple locks. The officer was temporarily relocated after I started to investigate the Richardson very closely. Michael was beginning to understand the magnitude of the conspiracy. Sarah, I need to tell you something. Tommy appeared at the hospital yesterday and made my daughter laugh for the first time in 2 years. She's been over an accident. Sarah's eyes illuminated. This makes all sense. Tommy always had this gift with traumatized children. It's as if he understood their pain. But Margaret, or anyone who is, wants to keep it away from the hospital. Because Tommy represents a threat, said Sarah, connecting the points. If people see what he really is, a kind and careful child, not the dangerous delinquent that the Richardson painted, their whole narrative collapses. Sarah opened a confidential file. Dr. Harrison, I need your help. I have evidence that they can destroy the Richardson, but I need Tommy to witness. And he doesn't trust adults, except apparently to you. Michael examined the documents. There were financial records showing suspicious payments to judges, counterfeit medical reports, and the most shocking, a secret recording of James Richardson discussing how to eliminate the boy's problem permanently. My God, whispered Michael, they are planning, kill him, Sarah completed coldly, disguised as an accident or suicide in one of these private institutions. It is what they do with children who know too much about their scheme. Michael felt a fury grow inside him. His medical career had been dedicated to saving children, and now he found that one of them was being systematically destroyed by a corrupt system. What do you need me to do? Sarah smiled for the first time since they met. I need you to use your position at the hospital to give me access to safety records. Margaret Williams may not be a nurse, but she has access to restricted areas. Someone is helping her from inside. And Tommy? Find him. He trusts you. Convince him to witness. We have a judicial audience in 3 days. It's our only chance to prevent the Richardson from recovering him. That night, Michael returned to the hospital with a renewed purpose. Using his administrative access, he began to investigate Margaret Williams's records. What found him furiously made him. She not only had unrestricted access to the facilities, but had also been monitoring patient records, specifically children with traumatic histories. Even more disturbing, Michael found that Margaret had photographed Emma without her permission, sending the images to an address not identified with the message, "Perfect candidate for the replacement program." The realization hit it as a radius. The Richardson didn't just want Tommy back, they were looking for a new victim, and Emma, with her history of trauma and isolation, would be the perfect target. Michael took his cell phone and dialed to Sarah. They don't just want Tommy, he said when she answered. They are planning something with my daughter. Across the line, Sarah's silence lasted a few seconds more than he should. When she finally spoke, her voice was loaded with a fierce determination. So it's time for us to stop hiding and start attacking. Dr. Harrison, are you ready to get into a war? Michael looked through the hospital window, seeing the city lights extending infinitely in front of him. Somewhere outside, Tommy was alone and scared as powerful forces converged to destroy him. And now your own daughter was in the target. I am more than ready, he replied, his voice loaded with a determination he had not had for years. It's time to show these people what happens when they mess with the wrong children. What Michael did not know was that across town, in a luxurious mansion, James Richardson was finalizing preparations for what he called Operation Cleaning, a plan to eliminate not only Tommy but anyone who could expose his crimes. And Margaret Williams, whose real name was Diana Blackwood and who had orchestrated similar schemes in 4 other states, smiled while reviewing the hospital's architectural plans, identifying exactly where and when it would make Emma Harrison disappear forever. In the next morning, Michael executed the first phase of his plan. Using his administrative access, he created a fake account in the hospital system and sent an email to Margaret Williams marking an emergency meeting about the Richardson case in the conference room at 6 a.m. Margaret arrived on time, but found the empty room except for Michael, who was waiting for her with an open laptop and an expression she had never seen before. Cold, calculating, dangerous. "Dr. Harrison, where are the other members of the meeting?" Margaret asked, his voice betraying nervousness. "There are no other members, Diana Blackwood," Michael replied calmly, turning the laptop so she could see the screen. "Or do you prefer me to call your real name?" Margaret's face paled to seeing his own criminal record displayed on screen. 4 states, 6 fake identities, dozens of missing children under his supervision. The documentation Sarah had provided was devastatingly complete. "I don't know what you're talking about." Margaret tried to keep the composure, but Michael noticed his hands shaking. "Sarah Chen told me everything," said Michael, reproducing the recording they had done the night before. Sarah's voice echoed through the room. "Diana Blackwood works for a premium adoption services network. She identifies vulnerable children in hospitals and orphanages." Margaret tried to get up, but Michael blocked the door. "Feel, we don't end yet." Michael clicked on another file, revealing the photographs Margaret had taken from Emma without permission. "You photographed my daughter and sent it to your contractors as perfect candidate for replacement. A traumatized, isolated child with a long-term medical father. You don't understand the situation," Margaret finally admitted, her professional mask collapsing. "Richardson pay very well for specific children. Emma would be treated as a princess." "Treated?" Michael laughed coldly. "How was Tommy treated? Cigarette and broken bones?" It was then that the second phase of the plan came into action. Sarah appeared at the door with 2 FBI agents, who had been listening to the entire conversation through a transmitter Michael used. "Diana Blackwood, you are trapped," announced Agent Rodriguez, "by conspiracy, children's trafficking, falsification of documents, and dozens of other federal crimes." As they put the handcuffs, Margaret looked at Michael with pure hatred. "You don't know who you're messing with. Richardson have contacts at all levels of the government." "They had," corrected Michael, "before the FBI find out about offshore accounts and judges' payments." Margaret's expression changed anger to absolute panic. "Like you, Sarah doesn't work alone," Michael explained. 3 years ago, she has been part of a federal operation to dismantle this network. Tommy didn't run away by chance. He was strategically placed on the streets so that we could track who would try to capture him. The truth has reached Margaret as a lightning. Tommy is bait. Tommy is a brave hero who agreed to help save other children, corrected Sarah, entering the room, and you just fell into the perfect trap. While taking Margaret, Michael received a text message from an unknown number. "Dr. Harrison, here is Tommy. I'm safe. Sarah said I can visit Emma today if you allow. I want to teach her to do origami. It's something I learned in the shelter." Michael smiled for the first time in days, but the best was yet to come. An hour later, Michael received a call from his colleague, Dr. Peterson of the administrative department. "Michael, you need to see the news. Richardson are being arrested live by CNN." Michael turned on the television and watched with satisfaction, while James and Patricia Richardson were escorted from her handcuffed mansion, surrounded by federal agents. The anchor explained, Operation False Angels dismantled one of the largest children's trafficking networks disguised as premium adoption services in the country. Michael's phone rang. He was the director of the hospital, Dr. Williams. "Michael, I need to apologize. We just discovered that Margaret Williams was never our employee. She had hacked our system and created fake credentials for months. The FBI has been investigating how she got access to our patient records." "I understand," said Michael, pretending to surprise. "It's shocking to find out that our security has been compromised." "There is more," Dr. Williams continued. "The board has decided to implement a pilot therapy program in the pediatric department, using specially trained volunteers to help traumatized children. We would like you to coordinate the program." Michael looked out the window and saw Tommy in the courtyard, making Emma laugh as she folded colorful roll in animal shapes. Other patients' patient had joined them, forming a small circle of genuine joy. "Dr. Williams," said Michael, "I know exactly the right person to start." That afternoon, while watching Emma teaching other children how to do origami under the guidance of Tommy, Michael received a last surprise. Sarah approached with an official envelope. "Michael, there's something I need to tell you about Tommy," she said, smiling. "He's not just my nephew. 3 years ago, when we started this operation, we needed a brave enough child to pretend to be a victim and intelligent enough to help us identify predators. Michael opened the envelope and found official certificates recognizing Tommy as a junior special consultant of the federal operation, along with a letter of recommendation for any university in the country when it was age. Tommy agreed to sacrifice 3 years from his normal childhood to save hundreds of other children, Sarah explained. Each time it was captured and placed with families like the Richardson, he collected evidence and identified other members of the network. Michael looked at the boy who had turned his daughter's life and realized that he was facing a small hero whose courage and sacrifice had dismantled an evil empire. But the biggest surprise was yet to come. Tommy approached him with a perfect origami of a butterfly. "Dr. Harrison," said Tommy with that wisdom that now Michael understood that he was developed through experiences that no child should have lived. "Sarah said I can choose my permanent family now that the operation is over. Emma told me that you have room for one more." 6 months later, Michael watched Tommy and Emma in the garden of her new home, teaching origami to a group of children who participated in the playful therapy program that had become a national model. The boy who once slept under bridges now had a room of his own, a family that loved him, and a bright future ahead. The Little Heroes program was our evolutionary pediatric treatment in hospitals across the country. Tommy, officially adopted by Harrison, had become the youngest ambassador to a federal children's protection initiation, traveling to give lectures on how to identify signs of abuse in seemingly respectable systems. "Dr. Harrison," said Sarah during a visit showing an impressive report, "Operation False Angels resulted in the arrest of 847 people in 15 states. You saved more than 2,300 children." Michael smiled, watching Emma run through the garden, something the doctors said it was impossible just a year ago. "We weren't we, Sarah. It was Tommy who saved us." The consequences for the Richardson were devastating and permanent. James was sentenced to 45 years in prison for children's trafficking, money laundering, and corruption. Patricia received 30 years. Their goods were confiscated and distributed to legitimate children's protection organizations. Margaret Williams, or Diana Blackwood, was sentenced to life imprisonment after revealing that she was involved in the disappearance of more than 200 children over 15 years. His network of false nurses and social workers was completely dismantled. Dr. Williams, director of the hospital, was fired after investigations revealed that he had received Richardson millionaire donations in exchange for facilitating access to vulnerable patient records. His replacement implemented security protocols that became a national standard. Michael received weekly letters from families around the country, thanking him for giving voice to the children silenced by the system. The program had identified and dismantled 23 other similar networks, proving that the Richardson case was just the tip of the iceberg. "Dad," said Emma one night during dinner, "the teacher asked what I want to be when growing up." "And what did you answer?" Michael asked, curious. "I said I want to be like Tommy, someone who helps sad children smile again." Tommy smiled, but there was a mature wisdom in his eyes that played Michael deeply. "Emma, you already do this every day. When you show other children that you can walk again, smile, hope, you are just that." That night, Michael received an unexpected call. Was from the Federal Investigation Office. "Dr. Harrison, I'm Director Miller. I want to inform him that Tommy Richardson was officially recognized as the youngest civil consultant in the history of the FBI. His courage saved more lives than many veteran agents." Michael looked at the certificate framed on the wall. Tommy had been awarded the Medal of Civil Honor, the highest distinction for civilians who risk their lives for the public good. But the biggest reward came a few weeks later, when Tommy received a letter from a 10-year-old Texas girl. "Thank you for saving my sister. The bad men couldn't hurt her because you were brave first." Michael realized that true revenge had not been to destroy the Richardson. It had been to build something bigger than they could ever imagine, a system that protects the vulnerable instead of exploring them. Tommy, now 10 years old and studying high school through a program for gifted, maintained his sweet personality and contagious sense of humor. But when he talked about his experience, he showed wisdom that inspired older adults. "Dr. Harrison," said Tommy during a national televised interview, "I learned that sometimes people do bad things because they think no one is paying attention. But always someone is paying attention. Always someone cares." Emma, sitting next to him, added with the confidence of a child who had overcome the impossible. "And sometimes when you help someone smile, you find that you can also walk again." 3 years later, Michael was invited to give a talk at Harvard University about the case that changed children's protection policies in the United States. In the audience, he saw faces of future doctors, social workers, and lawyers, people who grew up listening to the story of a brave boy who pretended to be a victim to save hundreds of other children. "The best revenge," concluded Michael his talk, "is not to destroy who tried to harm you. It is to build something so powerful and positive that it makes it impossible for injustice to repeat itself." Today, Tommy studies medicine at Harvard with a full bag, determined in the footsteps of his foster father. Emma has journalism, determined to give voice to the children forgotten by the system. And Michael continues to coordinate the Little Heroes program, which has already impacted more than 50,000 vulnerable children. The Richardson tried to break an innocent child, but eventually created a movement that protects thousands. Tommy proved that even in the darkest places, a single light can illuminate the way for hundreds of others. If this story has touched your heart and showed how true strength comes from protecting those who need it most, be sure to subscribe to the channel for more stories that prove that justice, when served with intelligence and love, always finds your way.